You from Nigeria's capital city.
On the show, we will take you through major events in politics, entertainment, and sports that shaped the week in Nigeria and globally. I am Jane Francis Mweze.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I am Ademola Lawrence. Interesting conversations we'll be having today. But first, let's start with what happened over the week. NLC and the Nigerian government, the first 2 days of this week were really busy for most of our correspondents, covering the nationwide strike by organized labor unions. From shutting down the national grid to local airport, the strike was full gear.
And the federal government quickly bent to resolve the issue by signing an agreement on increasing the minimum wage to above 60,000 naira. Labor unions decided to relax the strike for a week to give room for further negotiations to continue.
Now, after a meeting between both labor unions and the Tripartite Committee on Friday night, state and organized private sector have not agreed to peg the new minimum wage at 62,000 naira, while Labour still insists on 250,000 naira. The committee says it will submit a report to President Bola Tinubu.
We are making remarkable progress. We've made a lot of progress. Discussions have been very smooth, and we are almost getting to the point of agreement by all the three parties. I'm sure by tomorrow, when we reconvene by 11 o'clock, we will reach to some concrete kind of agreement, and that will be the position of that we will present to the plenary for adoption. No, it is not a matter of, we are taking a holistic approach to the whole issue, because it's not about minimum wage. Wages should be anchored around our capacity to generate revenue, and the sovereignty of the country is important to all of us. It is not about the workers, it's about Nigerians, and it's about our nation. And we have an obligation as citizens to work in hand with the government of the day to ensure that the prosperity comes.
And joining us in the studio this morning to bring further perspective to the whole discussion about the NLC strike and the government agreement and all that, we have a public affairs analyst who is also chairman and partners for electoral reform, Mr. Ezenwawagu. He'll be giving us more perspective on this. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, good to have you in the studio this week. So, we're back. It's looking like our 5 days, 1 week is almost up, and decisions have been made, so to say, on the different parties. But, not really agreeing, 62,000, 250,000. Where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves us first to intensify negotiations. What you have seen is what labor is about. Labor is about negotiations. It's about collective bargaining. And at the end of the day, it represents the interest, the broad interest of the workers. And so when it's satisfied that what has been put on the table would assuage, if you permit that, the current situation among workers, they would budge. But more importantly is to underscore the fact that we need to be a bit more proactive. This is something that has a time span. The minimum wage is like 5 years. After every 5 years, you negotiate. We don't always have to wait, and that's my challenge. We always wait until it's 10 years, or nearly 10 years already, after the 30,000 was agreed. So that time lapse now makes us look like as if there is somebody who is troublesome, who is cantankerous. That's labor. But that's not supposed to be. In my view, government called the strike, because if they had started negotiation, this tripartite committee can be set up way ahead of that time. So it won't get all your correspondents spending their nights waiting for people and all of those energies that we exert in trying to solve a problem that could have been solved quite a long time earlier would have been conserved, if you like.
I think that because while listening to the TUC president, he spoke about the fact that when this government came in, there was the tripartite committee first started their meeting. Sometimes I think it was sometimes in August or September.
Yes.
August, and they were supposed to resume by November, and that didn't resume. I think they resumed by November again. Then in April there was nothing. In January they met again. In April that was supposed to be the conclusion. There was nothing. There was no meeting that was held until they now set for May 1st, where they said they were going to give government the ultimatum. But now that we're here, the organized labor and the private sector have agreed for a 62,000 naira minimum wage. Labor is still insisting at 250,000 naira. How sustainable do you think this can, if we have to toe this line?
Well, like I started in my opener, I told you that it's for labor to make a demand. It's for government to say, everything considered, this is what we can, and being honest about it. Putting all the cards on the table. What do I mean? Your earnings, what are you getting? What will be the expenditure? What will be the consequence on inflation? Yeah. And that's important. When you are honest about that conversation, both parties can agree. There is no one. We all are Nigerians. We want the best for our country. Because at the end of the day, there are consequences for the increase. Those consequences could trigger inflation. It could trigger, cost of living could get higher. Market people are waiting now to hear what you have decided. All of those things will be put into. But for me, the 250,000 pegged by labor is still negotiable. It's still that the 62,000 the governors are saying have not met perhaps the demand of labor, and government will need to come up a bit more, and don't let us get into another strike. That's important, because what labor did was to suspend this for 1 week, and if they are not satisfied, their organs are not satisfied, they will have to use the instrument that is available to workers, which is to withdraw their services. So for me, is to say that all those who are concerned right now, the governors, for instance, who will say they can't pay, the organized private sector, will have to work with government to put the indices that can assuage the feeling of the workers who bear the burden of the removal of fuel subsidy, who bear the high cost of living, the inflation, electricity tariff, all of those things, including those of us who pretend now that it doesn't concern us. We will be brought into it eventually when this will happen. But I am concerned that the percentage of those who are in the public sector that all of these are working on do not probably also take care of the informal sector that is burgeoning, that is huge, and that will have consequences for all of this. So, but my sense is, let us put all of this together on the table and amicably resolve it without a further disruption of the lives and livelihoods of majority of the citizens who bear the brunt of all of this.
Okay, so Mr. Wago, now putting things...
Can you call me Ezenwa?
Okay, Ezenwa, yeah. So putting things into perspective, I mean, it was really very hard on a lot of people on Monday with the grid shut down and airports not functional. So government quickly had to, Labour got the attention of government quickly, and of course the strike was eventually suspended because government was ready to now calm down and sit on the table. But then he also brought in the informal sector. We have a lot of more of the employers of labor, the private sector. So when we put these things in perspective, with government saying 62,000 and labor saying 250,000 naira, how do we think that, government and the informal sector, as you put it, or the private sector, can actually do better to match up with labor and have us have a settled amount, at the weakest time, so to say?
So it's, like I said, it's about honesty. It's about the integrity of the conversation. And what do I mean by that? The people you are negotiating with are reasonable people. They are educated, even probably more educated than the people on the side of the government. So what you need to do is to put the indices on the table in clear terms. What is it? If you plug corruption, if you plug the holes of corruption, okay, the wasteful expenses in government, you will have enough money. You will have enough money to pay, workers. What, not just now minimum wage, but what we currently are calling living wage. Plug the excesses. There are too many excesses and wastages, in the system that once you are able to plug them, you free the resources. Okay, you can fund education, you can fund electricity, which is a human right, which is a right of your citizens to have power, so that they can also produce and then help the economy that you have. So when all of this is put on the table, in my view, we can have a headway. Now, the organized private sector also that exploits the labor of majority of the people who work for them will have to up their game. Why? Because production will have to increase. When you pay people better, they will give you much more of their services. But we also are in a place where you talk about mobility. If I don't pay you well, you can go to the next point. But we have to have a benchmark of what will be reasonable to pay an average worker in Nigeria, considering the situation that we are currently in, the economic, what do you call it now? The economic crisis that we're currently facing. And it's undeniably that we are in a crisis right now. So how do you want a family of 4, 6 to survive with the kind of pay that is going on? We need to up that, and 62,000, in my view, is not good enough.
I agree with you that 62,000 naira might not be enough. Considering the economic crisis, the challenges that we're actually facing. When you were speaking the other time, you talk about how inflation will, of course, will skyrocket. And if you look at Nigeria currently now, the inflation is way above 30,000. Yeah. 30%. Yeah. So if you look at that, that simply means that going by that, let's say, for example, the Labour now agrees that, government now agrees that I'm going to pay a level 1, 250,000 naira. I think it's more of the organized private sector.
It's not for labor. You see,
I'm just saying that.
Demola, listen, you work here.
Yeah.
It's not, you have services that you render.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you go to negotiation, you come from your highest. In the days when we were in the student movement, if we had a problem with the university authority, we start with the vice chancellor must go. The vice chancellor, all our demands will start with the VC must go. So you are shouting VC must go, but you know that's not what you are going to do. Okay? So they will say, okay, the VC, leave VC matter. Can we discuss, these main issues? You have 10 issues, they can give you 3. At that point, you can go to the people you represent and say, I have got something for you. Okay? So what I'm saying is that the people concerned are not unreasonable. They also understand the economics. Okay? They understand that the current privatization, commercialization, and all the World Bank pressure that is put on Nigeria, if we can wrestle ourselves away from it, we'll be able to free resources to make the lives of our people better. And it's as simple as that. So it has nothing to do with, whether somebody is unreasonable. I just think that what government needs to do is to say, Labour, come. This 62,000 we are talking about, this is why we are saying it. And Labour will say, no, these are our own arguments. We can come down from the 250. The 250 is not grail message. It's not the law of mates and Patia that cannot be broken.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for the perspective.
I just want to ask you one more question while we go. How much do you think it should be paid?
I have no idea. My sense is that this negotiation should get to the point where everybody is happy. Okay. Labour is happy, government is comfortable.
All right.
Thank you very much, everyone, for giving us this perspective that we're looking out for, which is how these things would affect. And we hope that as soon as possible, it would all be resolved between the tripartite, government, and all. So thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll still have more for you on live from